noon hour away from work, so you can listen to XL Primetime. You can tune in all day. We got both of the apps, the 1010XL app and the 92.5 FM app, so make sure you download those and rock and roll with us throughout the day and throughout the season as we got big things going on. So let's just we're going to get to the training camp as far as some of the things that we're pulling out of it. Basically a week of practices, a few in pads since Sunday. But, JJ, go ahead and throw out the Twitter poll question because I think this is going to be a hot topic.
Yeah, so we teased it earlier. Twitter poll question today, as always, brought to you by Beaver Toyota of St. Augustine. Who do you think should be number one on the Jags list? Simple enough. Fred or Baselli? Right now, Freddie T leading the way, 65%. Still only 20 votes.
And by the way, on the text line, I'm getting the business a little bit. I'm not ripping Fred, but we're comparing Fred and Tony. And everybody's saying Fred deserves to be better than Tony, and that's fine if that's your opinion. I'm just simply throwing out there that Tony Baselli is one of the best offensive tackles that's ever lived. He's going to be in the Pro Football Hall of Fame one day. It's not a slight to me at Fred Taylor that Tony Baselli was voted number one by the media. I think some people are taking it as a slight to Fred that Tony was ranked above him. If Tony Baselli's ranked above you, you're still pretty darn good.
Yeah. I'm not even defending Fred in this case. But all these guys have pride. I told Leon.
Sure. Leon, and I have no idea if Fred's even upset. I know the fans seem to be upset.
Yeah, and
some of them.
I told Leon. I thought they voted him down just a little bit. I thought he should have been higher. But if you're the runner-up, I don't care how. What is it? What's the saying? If you're
Ricky
second,
Bobby.
If you're
first, you're last.
Yeah,
not first, you're last.
Yeah, and if you're second, you're the first to lose.
I'm Ricky Bobby. If you don't chew big red gum, then never mind. Never mind. Best endorsement ever.
Baby Jesus.
Yeah.
All right.
Maybe Fred is looking at it like this. He's not the bride, he's a bridesmaid.
And that probably can get in your craw a little bit.
Can crawl a little bit. I mean, I'm just saying. But listen, I would tell you something. I had the opportunity to watch both of them on film, and they both were pretty damn special. Okay?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, offensive linemen, we don't have anything statistically that can give us the leeway like a running back has. But I've been in the meeting rooms where I've seen Tony Baselli not just block defensive linemen. Mm-hmm. I'm talking about annihilate them.
Yeah.
Okay. And then I've seen Fred Taylor, who goes 0 to 100 in like 2 seconds, and he sees a hole, he dances, he's gone. You can't listen. I'll be surprised if either one of them, care as much about being one or two. Maybe they do. Maybe they don't.
You never know.
But
I just know that. But you are right that we can't ignore the best at their position, even though we do lock in to who has the ball. If not for the Basellis and the Cerceys of the world, and you can name all the other ones, because I thought when it's all said and done, the All-25 included some really damn good linemen that did a lot of good things for this football team, so the skill could get out there. And I think Leon said it. We basically need to quit saying skill position players, excluding linemen.
Well, there were 5 linemen. You had Naoli and Manawai as your guards, Meester as your center, and Baselli and Cersei as your tackles. I would take that any day of the week.
All day.
How about this, Leon, on the text line? Try to contain yourself, all right? Media thinks Tony is better. Fans think Freddie is better. Fred is a flashy player. Tony is just a lineman. No one cares about linemen as a casual fan.
Oh, that is a shot.
It's the 803, Leon. If you want to get the full number, I can give it to you.
I want to kick their ass.
Yeah, that's just someone who obviously doesn't understand or know the game of football.
That's a very self-contained, answer.
Humble.
No, I'm for real. Come on now. The
linemen have feelings too.
No, listen. I tell you what, the base of any good offense is going to be the offensive line. If you look at any of the quarterbacks that are flinging the ball everywhere, they've got a solid offensive line to protect them. So it doesn't.
I'll use Leon saying, "Real men block."
Right.
Okay.
Well, I think
it's a fact.
I think we're actually getting caught with this one or the other between is it better or is it meant more to the franchise? Right? So if you're looking at who is better, who is a better player, you could certainly say Baselli because he's Hall of Fame credentials. He's going to get in. We don't know that Fred will get in. Who meant more to the franchise on a game-by-game basis in his career?
Right, but then you can't use that argument with MJD and Burnell. That's we said the same exact thing a couple days ago.
But I'm not talking about those two. I'm talking about these two. The most important, 1 versus 2. That's what I'm talking about. I'm not using it for anyone else. I'm just using it for this one.
Right, but maybe I misinterpreted what you said, but I thought we had the same conversation. Who was better? Who was more important? Mark Brunell was way more important to the team and the franchise and the overall history. You could argue MJD was a better player on the field, and maybe that's why he got voted higher than Brunell. But there's no way Brunell was less important to the franchise than Maurice Jones-Drew.
And both of these guys were involved in the heyday as well. But for Baselli's side of this, he was involved in 96 and 99, whereas Fred came along in 98. Now, when Fred came along, he burst onto the scene quickly and had a huge impact, and those were also still playoff years. But, yeah, it's really hard to kind of figure out, okay, what check mark do I put next to what name?
Yeah. Who gets the statue first? That's the question.
Baselli's name went on that wall first.
It'll be 71.
And the poll question is fluctuating back and forth, back and forth. Right now, Baselli's in the lead.
All right, at 1010XL on Twitter. Vote on that.
I mean, I know we didn't put him on there. There's still an argument to me for Jimmy as well.
It is.
But
look, it's the numbers I just said, 67 touchdowns.
Yeah.
Okay, and think of what he was able to do. And just to rattle off the years, and like I said, he came in that 95 expansion, and so he had very little productivity in that first year. He was drafted by Dallas in the second round? Does that sound right?
Mm-hmm. Came out with me, yeah.
Yeah, second round in 92, but then had the injuries and then ultimately was picked up by the Jags. But from 96 on, listen to these numbers. 1,244 yards, 1,324 yards, 1,182, 1,636, where he averaged 14 yards per catch. Only had 6 touchdowns, but was just rocking and rolling in 1999. That was his peak year. Then went for 1,213, 1,373, 1,027. Had a quiet year comparatively speaking, and then finished out 04 and 05 with 1,172 and 1,023. But we also, in that year, he only played 12 games. So he had 805 yards because of the injury. But we also have to factor in, Jimmy, what happened off the field, getting in trouble. That has to be part of this, right, Leon?
Yeah, unfortunately it is. Unfortunately, that had some leeway and probably was some. I mean, because
but at least they still voted him number 3.
Yeah, they still voted him number 3, but it shouldn't have to influence the voters because everything is supposed to be contingent upon what he did on the football field. So, but I mean, I think the best thing that Jimmy had going for him is that his opponents feared him. Mm-hmm. I mean, just the conversations that I had with LeVon yesterday when I was with the Ravens, they didn't want no part of Jimmy. And that speaks volumes to the type of talent that he was, that he struck fear in defense's heart when he played.
Well, and to Matt's point, though, I mean, what should matter more? What you did on the field, what happened off the field in Jimmy's case, or what you meant to the organization.
This thing about this situation, LT. Are you going to say LT's not the greatest one of the greatest defensive players of all time? LT had his issues off the field.
Good example.
But LT is one of the all-time greatest players in NFL history. No one. I mean, you got to disregard. I mean, he had his off-the-field issues as well, right? It's well documented.
I don't think I mean, Joe is right. It definitely plays a factor. I don't think it should play any factor at all.
I don't think so.
Just for historical sake, just for us here locally.
No, you're right. I agree with you.
I'd have to go back and look at LT and whether this happened or not. But Jimmy Smith wanted a contract, pressed, got the contract, and then ended up testing positive. So that was the timeline that ended up being, and then.
I get it. I totally get it.
And then that immediate retirement. So that's the thing that probably still sticks. And look, we've had conversations with Jimmy. I love having him on. Hopefully, we will be able to get him on and recognize him as the top 3. But he knows that. He has to know that as well as anybody else. But it's a math problem. It's what you did, how high were the stakes, right, for the team, and then maybe a little bit of what you did as a member of the community, right?
Yeah, I agree.
I think that's all part of it.
And again, I don't know if there was any criteria for this list. Frangie was a voter. We can ask him later because he was one of the people that voted on this list if there was any set of criteria. But no, when you say the Jacksonville Jaguars, to me, Tony Baselli, right or wrong, is the first guy that comes to mind. And if he's the first guy that comes to mind, to me, that probably means he's number 1 in franchise history. Now, right behind him is Fred Taylor and Jimmy Smith. I think they got that right. I would have put Brunell 4. Because, again, I don't think the history of the Jaguars, Maurice Jones-Drew should be ahead of Mark Brunell. He would be number 5.
Yeah.
But I don't have much of a problem with the list. I think, all in all, they got it right. Now, maybe I'm a little biased, but I agree with Joe. I think Leon was a little low. If you want to get into the teens and start looking at guys where they were, I thought Darius was too low. I thought Leon was too low.
That's kind of where we
and
all
I thought
kind of
Posluszny was too high.
Yeah, and that's kind of where we all jumped in a little bit, like, wait a minute, because I remember saying kind of the same thing about Kevin Hardy. Kevin Hardy his accomplishments weren't dismissed, but they were discounted a little bit, I thought, compared to, like we said, maybe some more of the recent names maybe got a little more love. I'm not sure. The 595 on the text line built by Lifetime Enclosures. If Fred Taylor played for the Cowboys or Pittsburgh, he'd already be in the Hall of Fame. One of the best all-around backs to ever lace up the cleats.
Why? I don't see. Again, that's like the trendy thing. I don't understand why people say that.
Well,
why?
and
Why
I think,
would he be in the Hall of Fame if he played in Dallas?
But let me ask you this, and this goes back, and we'd have to do all the research. And for my money, Dylan and Graham, they're not going to do this.
Pride of Denmark. Pride of Denmark is about to go back to school.
Well,
man. He needs to get his act together.
Both of them are going to be roommates.
They are.
In Gainesville. So they're going to be our embedded reporters, but we're going to have to make sure they get out of bed, okay, and go to class if they're going to be. But I'm looking at their names. It's just a total aside. They should have a law firm opened up. Hi, I'm Dylan Denmark, and I'm Graham Marsh.
Denmark.
Seriously,
Denmark.
Is that not just straight attorney talk right there?
That is.
I'm Graham Marsh, and I'm Dylan Denmark.
Marsh, Denmark, and Marsh.
Yeah, there you go.
But just when you think back, and we were all in fantasy football at the time. And I don't know I do think it matters where you play. There are too many examples that we can come up with where guys, where they played, had definitely an impact because the team was successful. Therefore, the player gets credit. But think about this. Go back, like we were talking about, with Priest Holmes, Curtis Martin, Larry Johnson, all those guys. And just one stat-wise seemed to trump him. But then you also know the bus, some of these guys were getting a hell of a lot of votes because of where they were playing.
Name one.
And how big they were playing, how big of games that they were playing.
All right, well, Corey Dillon played in New England. He played in Cincy, which is a bigger market. He's not in. Steven Jackson played in St. Louis. Yeah. Warwick Dunn played in Atlanta and Tampa Bay. These are recognizable guys in bigger markets. Edgerrin James was one of the triplets in Indy with Peyton and Harrison, and he's not in. When people say Fred would have gotten in if he played in New York, that's just like the thing to say, but you don't really have any substance when you say it.
Okay, but Curtis Martin, was he on par with Curtis Martin?
Fred Taylor?
Yeah.
Curtis Martin's one of the top 5 running backs that's probably ever played this game.
Yeah, again, we have to have all the pieces put together, record-wise, accomplishments, how deep they went. He was part of one big playoff, more than one playoff run, but you know what I mean. One big moment where they were able to make it to the AFC Championship game.
He's also got 2,500 more rushing yards than Fred Taylor.
I know. I'm not even really arguing. I'm just saying, comparatively speaking, in that time frame, Leon, were they not toe-to-toe? Even though it may have added up to 2,500 more yards.
Yeah, they were toe-to-toe. They were toe. I mean, Curtis Martin was in a bigger market. Unfortunately, but Jacksonville was shining, and Fred came right in the middle where Jacksonville was taking off, 98-99 season. But without a doubt, to say that because you're not in a bigger market, you don't get more attention is crazy. If you're in a bigger market, you're going to get more attention.
Thurman Thomas played in Buffalo.
You'll have more games played on a national basis instead of a regional basis.
Right, but
you'll have more people, more Hall of Fame voters seeing you on a weekly basis. You'll have more buzz. You'll have more buzz from ESPN, which generates a lot of how people think. It's absolutely a factor. To think that it's not a factor is short-sighted. Of course it's a factor.
I'm very short-sighted.
It doesn't mean that it's not the all-time be-all, say-all factor. But it absolutely is.
This isn't Pac-12 football where people in Jacksonville don't watch Arizona State and Utah. If you want to watch an NFL game, there are a million outlets to watch NFL games. To
watch the Jaguars game,
yes.
you got to get DirecTV.
Hey, Jaguars were shown in 3% of the nation. So
how much was New England shown when Corey Dillon played there?
Whatever 3 minus 100 minus 3 is, 97%.
All right, and Corey Dillon's not in either.
Yeah, no, I'm just saying. If you have the stats and you're on the team that's playing for rings and winning rings, that does have something to do with it. It's just what Leon just said.
Right, but you're helping my argument when it comes to Corey Dillon. He was doing that. He played in a big market.
But you're still going to look at the individual and what he did. Corey Dillon he may be in the Hall of Very Good, and Fred may end up always being in the Hall of Very Good. But I'm just not dismissing the idea that when you were in a smaller market that it didn't have some effect on you. It had an effect on being voted a Pro Bowler. If you're voted a Pro Bowler a bunch of times, that'll have an effect on a Hall of Fame vote. It just happens that way.
All right.
It just
I don't see it. But
Yeah.
I mean, well, and when Baselli goes in, that argument will go away.
yeah.
Because Baselli played in the same market Fred Taylor
Right, but
did.
still, we're only talking about one guy over time.
I mean, how many Hall of Famers does Carolina have?
Kevin Green,
But I mean, he earned his muster in Pittsburgh.
yeah, but he still was very good there.
And Charlotte's a pretty big market.
hey,
right?
when it's all said and done, think of what Carolina may or may not have. I don't know if it's above what Jacksonville will have, but you have to take a look at what Julius Peppers.
Julius Peppers
he's
will get
a
in, and Steve
certain
Smith
Hall
might
of
get
Famer.
in.
Steve Smith might, and you can think of a couple of other ones.
Cam Newton.
Yeah, through the years when it's all said and done.
So they only have Reggie White and Kevin Green. Obviously, neither one of them did most of their work there.
Right. And
So they don't have any right now.
So again, the Jaguars and the Panthers are the same aged franchise. Charlotte's a big city, right? I mean, I don't know what the media size is, but it's a lot bigger than Jacksonville, and they still don't have anybody in. Is that because they play in Charlotte?
But they're not getting on TV significantly more than the Jags. There's as far as TV viewership and vision, they're very similar to Jacksonville.
Right. So is it a small market, or is it because they don't get on TV?
But it's what people want to watch is what it is. That's how those games are determined. The national games are determined by what's important and what they feel like is the big game, what people want to watch.
And Julius Peppers is a shoe-in.
Yeah.
And it's just because of his talent, really not where he played. That part I'll agree with. But I also think that there's always something that plays into it, just the recognition, right or wrong. The East Coast bias, we've heard it 1,000 times. I did think of one thing as we're talking about this. Everyone complains about the start time of the Pac-12, which is true. The NFL is popular across every time zone because they don't start that late. So that also has something to do with it. They're smart, and there's only so many teams, so they can definitely keep the ratings up and the television's on because of the time that they play. We mentioned with the training camp sponsorship some of the things that we saw today, and there are a few guys that are starting to pop for me a little bit. Leon, you and I were talking about this a little bit earlier as far as guys that are starting to look the part, make the plays. You mentioned earlier that rookies have to be impactful for this football team this year. They can't just sit on the side and learn. And Quincy Williams, people can judge where he was drafted, too high, too whatever. He's all over the place.
Yeah, I like his motor. I like his motor. I like his intensity. I mean, he's running. I mean, he's running to his spot. He's getting to his spot. I mean, there's not a lot of tackling going on, but
Right.
but everything, he has a good motor. I mean, he stays low. I mean, I've only saw a brief history of his film, but everything that I saw in his film led me to believe that this kid is downhill and he knows how to tackle. He's always you know who he reminds me of. Now I'm not putting him in the same category, but Sam Mills. You remember Sam Mills with the Carolina
Motor,
Panthers,
running
short
downhill.
size,
Yeah.
great motor, downhill. Always had the perfect fit. Always tackled well, whatever. This kid has a lot of great potential. I mean, Doug Marrone said something yesterday in his meeting that he was the fastest guy on the field.
I love
practice.
how Doug phrased it too. He goes, that guy's gonna be pissed off. That guy's
Oh
gonna be
yeah, he's gonna be a lot of But I tell you what, every time I see him in practice, he's at the play. He's somewhere in the play.
Yeah, and gets there like that
In the instance.
Like you think he's over here, and then 10 yards, half a second later, he's covered.
I love his motor.
Yeah, which is good. And a couple of other guys that are at least making plays. They may not all be rookies, but they are brand new to this team. The chemistry that has been talked about for a while with Foles and Conley is getting better and better and better. I think it's more obvious. I think Keelan Cole has looked good in camp. Not going to make too big of a deal of it, but we're talking about guys that need to step up. And I'm having a conversation with someone on the side, depending on the health of Marquise Lee and depending on how good Keelan Cole may be this year in a comeback year, there may not be enough room on this roster for the Terrell Pryors of the world. If they have to make room for Marquise Lee, then another guy's going to get cut other than Keelan Cole because I think he's had a good camp.
Who costs more, Cole or Pryor? Cole might actually be cheaper.
Yeah, I
on his
still think,
undrafted rookie deal.
Yeah, versus the veterans
Pryor's $1
minimum.
million.
Yeah.
Prior's
yeah.
guy's $1 million. So
Yeah, I'm
probably
sure.
Cole,
Yeah, if you want to save money and save nickels, you'd cut Pryor if
Yeah.
all things are equal.
And it very well could be that way. And that's kind of what I'm saying is that I think he's having a better camp than I expected. So I'm giving Keelan Cole credit here. He's getting open, arms up, hands in the right spot, making the catch, hauling it in, turning upfield, all that stuff. And I've seen Terrell Pryor, and my eyes pop when I see the size and speed, but I haven't seen him make hardly any plays. So he's got to make those plays.
I've seen the Gardner Minshew to Terrell Pryor hook up a few times.
But just for what it's worth, Minshew kind of had a lousy practice today.
Did he?
Again, day to day, it changes. You see something, I see something. Opinions are easily going to change, but it just wasn't a very good one, especially when they were doing the 2-minute and they were trying to, work 11 on 11. And Taven Bryan, he was running with – I don't want to make too much of this either.
You think we lit a fire under Taven Bryan?
Well, no,
did he hear the negativity?
He's running with the 2s and 3s.
Maybe the coaches heard the negativity.
I don't know. Just that guy needs to – and Leon, this goes back to what you said. You got to have the fire in the belly. Do you not? You can have all the physical talent.
Yeah, you just don't turn it on Sundays. You've got to show some. You've got to show some productivity during the week. I've always been a stickler on is how you do little things, how you do everything. And I always used to tell guys when I used to coach, I say, hey, don't tell me how you're going to get it done during game day. Show me in practice.
Yeah.
So I mean, you got to see these guys getting it done in practice to really be able to give it an evaluation once they come and start playing football.
Because the two guys that aren't doing it right now, third-round pick and Dwayne Smoot, and Taven Bryan as a first-round pick. And those are two guys that they are counting on Taven Bryan to do something. They're going to hope that Dwayne Smoot does something to where they can keep him on the roster. Otherwise, they're going to cut him loose.
This was the year Taven Bryan was supposed to play. I mean, whether you like it or not, last year was a redshirt year because they had Malik Jackson. They knew they didn't need Taven Bryan. This year they need Taven Bryan. And if Taven Bryan doesn't give him anything more than what he gave him last year, that is now officially a bad pick in round number 1.
Yeah, that one we're going to put 90 on notice, that's for sure. All right, into the 1 o'clock hour, we'll get to those rankings position group-wise for the Jaguars and the rest of the National Football League. Where do you think your positions rank among other NFL squads? We'll tell you coming up. It's XL Primetime. Thanks to the Golf Club of Southampton. 2-8-7 play. Make sure you get on the tee sheet for a little 9 after 5 action tonight. The end of the summer league and then a new league cranking up. They've got fantasy football parties waiting for you to book and the clubhouse as well. 2-8-7 play for the Golf Club of Southampton.
Cruising with XL Primetime in the first